Meeting. Like to invite everyone to our Marine Week. We're celebrating Marine Week in Phoenix, Arizona, and we have over 600 Marines around downtown with all kinds of equipment and workshops for the family. So if you have a chance, bring your young ones down, bring the family down, enjoy Marine Week in downtown Phoenix. Also, they have a website if you want to look for activities. It's marine.mil for military. That's marine.mil. With that, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve June 10th minutes?
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. We have call to the public. We have no cards for call to the public. Nope. Alrighty, so then we'll continue to item number 4. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go into a special city council meeting, which that means is that there's other colleagues. We can't have a quorum, so we made a public notice that we're going to actually have a special meeting so that my other colleagues can participate or even present to the subcommittee on drones. So at this time, I'll call the special meeting of the City Council to order. Will the clerk go ahead and welcome everyone else in, and then we'll have a roll call.
I'll be leaving after the roll call, so you'll have room.
What's that?
I'll be leaving after the roll call, so you'll have
Oh,
room.
no.
Well, I thought, okay. I thought you were going to go through.
Alrighty, can we have roll call?
Councilman DeCiccio.
Here.
Councilwoman Gallego.
Here.
Councilman Gates. Here. Councilman Nowakowski.
Here.
Councilwoman Pastor.
Here.
Councilman Waring. Councilwoman Williams.
Here.
Vice Mayor Valenzuela. Mayor Stanton.
Alrighty, so now we're on item number 4 on the subcommittee, or the special meeting. We have a special presentation from our colleague, Sal DeCiccio. And Sal, I just want to thank you that back in March or so, you brought this issue about drones and unmanned aircrafts to our attention. And both of our staff's been working very hardly on creating some type of process and ordinance for the city of Phoenix. So thank you, and it's all yours.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate, I guess I should do that, right? Can you hear me now? It's usually not that hard to hear. It's the Italian thing. But I want to thank the chairman, especially for all the hard work that you put into this. Michael, your staff did an incredible amount of work. I know Craig did. Shane was on it too before. There's just been an incredible amount of work from the Goldwater Institute to the ACLU. We've solicited opinions throughout the entire city from individuals, from sports authority, sports teams to journalists to, I can't imagine how many people we've talked to on this. And what we did is we started looking at this back in December of last year, and it's evolved considerably. The one thing that you want to do is you always want to make sure you don't have any unintended consequences with this, and you want to look and see what's been happening around the country as well. And we were able to do that. We looked around the country, saw what was going on. A lot of the things that were happening in the country were more prohibitive in use. What we wanted to do is balance 3 basic things out of this ordinance. One, protecting individual privacy from your neighbor. The other is protecting individual privacy from the government. And then the third is to not do anything to hinder commerce and growth in the business, because that's really what's going to be happening. I mean, that's the next trend of what's happening in this country, because whether it's the use of drones or high technology, you don't want to step in that way either, but you want to find a way to give those levels of protections to individuals who need those types of protections too. Because as technology moves forward, government generally lags, and what we want to do is get ahead of it, but not ahead of it so far that you create something that doesn't work and that's not workable. So we wanted to really focus strongly on the privacy end of it, and then everything else can kind of come into play as technology moves forward. So when we started looking at the ordinance, that's what created many changes in this thing, just multiple changes, just getting feedback. And I know we're probably going to be looking for more changes today too. But again, the main focus is on individual privacy. For example, even in the ordinance, we have protection from your neighbor. You know, we all should have a reasonable expectation that our neighbor next door to us is not flying something over our homes, videotaping our families and our children. Likewise, when it comes to the privacy from government, this is where the right meets the left. Neither one of us really believe that government should be videotaping and taking, you know, it chills free speech is what it does. So when you've got situations where we have, and most of these marches that are going on in the city of Phoenix, I'm sure are completely opposed to what I believe in, but they have a fundamental right to do that. And what you don't want to do is create a situation or an atmosphere where it chills that free speech. And that's critical. I mean, if anything that I found in this, as we were working through this with Councilman Nowakowski, was that that was a fundamental, that we didn't want to do anything that chilled free speech from individuals. And then the third part of it is we wanted to make sure not only did we address the commerce part, but we didn't want to create restrictions on it. What we wanted to do is make sure that they were protecting the individual privacy. For example, we also know in the real estate industry, it's an easy one. The use of drones are very common. You know, people want to videotape their homes, but sometimes you will be able to see what's happening in your neighbor's yard. So what it does is that there's even a time period in here where the individuals are allowed to basically recorrect that tape. You don't want to be able to tape somebody else or somebody else's private property. So let me go through, if I could, the presentation. I'll be pretty quick through it, but we covered a lot of it right now. I like this thing going up and down. I mean, they've never done it for me before. I've never seen that thing. What's that? Yeah, I know. Where is that? I know. Can we go up again? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So if we could, we got a brief presentation. Yeah, and I don't know how, I'm the non-technology guy. That's why Vanessa, everybody in our office is like 20 years old. They get it.
Operated this, so
Yeah. We're trying to figure out how to use this.
how do I turn it on?
Or they are? Was it? It's okay. Well, everyone's got copies of this. I can cover it without getting into too many details either. Well, I'm trying to get as many details as possible. If you go through the first slide, I'm going to go through that. Hold on a second. I need one that has bigger print on it because I can't see. Let me go through it here. I've got it right here. The first slide basically, we really wanted to, again, talk about the privacy part. The privacy protection ordinance is what we wanted to call it. You can call it anything you want. The sensational part of it, dealing with the media, deals with drones. That's all good and fine too. Whatever works, works. The second part of it, we wanted to address common applications of drones, which we want to be able to use them for. For instance, for firefighting, you should be able to do that. For 3D mapping, wildlife monitoring, real estate marketing, photography for sports activities, things like that. You want to be able to do that because that is the new technology, and you don't want to find any way or any reason really to hinder that growth in the economy either. The third slide would deal with concerns of unmanned aircraft, or the drones is what you would call it. We saw situations where they've delivered illegal drugs in some of the prisons and created a riot in some of those in Ohio. The invasion of personal privacy, the potential of stalking victims of domestic violence. This is one of those that if you think about it, it's not really that difficult to do. You may have an order of protection keeping an individual away from his or her spouse, but how hard would it be then to be able to follow that individual? That we should be able to include that in there as well. And then violating orders of protection. The overall objective we just covered, again, was dealing with the privacy part, safety, and commerce protection. Protection or privacy from your neighbor and privacy from your government. And then we outlined some of the legislation in other cities and states. And if you look at most of the, at least the ordinances that we saw, and that's why ours evolved through the time, was that a lot of them are very prohibitive in nature, or they're regulatory in nature, that you had to get a permit to do these things. We wanted to stay away from that because if you look at it, as a general rule, just like any other action, 1 to 2% of the population are the ones that create the problems. Don't make it for everybody else. People that are abiding by basic privacy rules and privacy law, requirements, they shouldn't have to be penalized just because others are creating the problem for them. If it becomes too widespread later on, I don't know what will happen in that situation, but right now we wanted to stay focused on the individuals that were committing the issues. And that's what we did with our ordinance. Examples of drone misuse on the following page, page 4, I believe it is. Right now, we had a situation where, this is my eyesight. I thought I was going to have the big screen. So, you know, the drone flies 100 feet below an airliner in Phoenix, the Ohio prison yard, free-for-all after the drone drops drugs. So we're seeing this more and more, and it's, you know, and the reason we're seeing it more in the media is because people are starting to use it more as well. Then the meeting with the stakeholders, and I covered that briefly. We met with the journalists, civil rights leaders, the ACLU, the Goldwater Institute. Matter of fact, we've got quite a few comments back again from the ACLU, so we're going to be incorporating those moving forward and looking at what they've got to present. Both the ACLU and the Goldwater Institute were critical in putting this together. Now, that's individuals from two sides of the world, but they were able to work together. We thought that was pretty good. Public safety representatives we talked to, congressional experts, members of the business community, sports franchises, and I think you'll hear from the Diamondbacks here today. The concern that they have too is flying, you know, multiple individuals being able to fly drones over a sporting event. It's something you wouldn't think of in the future, but why, you know, that could happen. Now, I know according to our city staff, they may be able to still do that. I'm not sure. We'll find out when we take this thing the next step. The realtors, like I've said before, we met with them, we've talked to them. We've actually talked to the individuals who run the drones or run the business, the commerce side of it. And you'll hear from them early. Hopefully they're still here. I don't know if they're here today or not. But we had a really good meeting with them. Educational institutions. So again, we did not want to impede commerce, but we want to be able to protect individual rights and rights from government. We also took a look at the law, the Federal Aviation Authority versus the City of Phoenix Authority, basically. And we wanted to address just things that we were able to have under our purview, not really get into the way of what's happening with the federal government. Anything over 200 feet, the federal government looked at it as theirs. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to do that. Again, you want to be able to look at, you know, office buildings, sports complexes, residential homes, parks. We should be able to do some of those things, especially if we need to have that. On the next part, we just basically went through the definitions. It's pretty detailed, the ordinance. And some of the things that you're going to find in the ordinance is, you know, we already are protected in a lot of ways with the state constitution. What we wanted to do is memorialize all those privacy protections into one ordinance and then be able to address, you know, the drones and then other types of, you know, UAV types of monitoring. So if you go through this, the definitions, basically we defined what an unmanned aircraft vehicle is. We defined what an image and an imaging device is in the first section. Section 2, we talked about the prohibitions. Again, prohibited use of individuals against other individuals or spying on them, using their commercial likeness. You know, even though there are issues, there are laws addressing that. Again, we want to memorialize that into one ordinance and bring it all together. The other is we wanted to make sure that it prohibits individuals from intimidating or threatening others as well. The City of Phoenix, Section 3, City of Phoenix cannot use a drone to investigate or spy against private citizens without the consent or a valid search warrant. You know, they basically have to have some sort of reasonable cause to be able to do that. Just because somebody's going to be having a rally doesn't necessarily mean we should be having other types of monitoring. Having a police officer there is one thing, but again, it's the chilling of free speech that's critical. And it's one of those things that you just don't want to do. People should be able to say what they want to say as long as they don't incite a riot and say bad things about our police. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So Section 4 is the exemptions and non-applicability. We put an incredible amount of exemptions in there. Again, the real estate industry, the cargo delivery, that's the Amazon. You know, because we know Amazon wants to be able to deliver. We don't want to impede that. We want, again, it's all about privacy. Aerial mapping, document of a crime scene, hot pursuit chases, valid search warrants, things like that. You know, those are things that, you know, most people in the public would find that to be fairly acceptable to do. It's just when it gets into our own personal space again. Section 5 covers the privacy part of it, the collection of data, retention policy, that if we do have some video on this, it retains it for 90 days, and I think that that follows the law, today's state law. And it put in, we also have some dissemination requirements in there. Section 6 covers the civil liberties protection. Cannot be used to discriminate for any of the recognized classes. It must conform to federal and state and local policies. And third, it must have a process in place for complaints. And then 7 deals with the accountability section. Considers policies and procedures in place to ensure oversight, use, individuals' data, and abuse. And Section 8 is the transparency, which informs the public, policies and procedures, and a general summary of operations and uses. So that's pretty much it. The ordinance itself, like I said, is very comprehensive, and we're going to hear some more testimony today that's going to want to add to it. Maybe even some of it will be deleting it. For example, when I met with the individuals who are involved in the UAV, what's it called? They're involved in the industry. One of the things I wanted to make sure that we were real clear in, that this dealt with our private residents, because once you're outside of that, there's really not much you can do. You know, there just isn't, unless they use it for commercial purposes and use your image. They can't do that. We found that with Mrs. Brewer, or Governor Brewer. Same thing happened with her on that. So same thing could happen here as well. So this would basically encapsulate your own private property, and then and that's what there's probably some language we want to put in there to make sure that it's very specific to individuals' private property on their home, backyard, and anything dealing with internally their home. And I can open it for any questions. Hopefully it was pretty comprehensive.
I want to make sure that if there's any representation or reps from the unmanned aircraft industry here that would like to comment, to please fill out one of these comment cards, and we'll call you. At this time, I'd like to, we have about 4 individuals that would like to speak. If my colleagues are all right to listen to the public first before having comments. We have Mark York, if you come on down.
Morning.
Good morning.
I wrote everything down last time I did this in Paradise Valley. I choked a little bit because y'all are intimidating. Anyhow. Good morning. My name is Mark Yori. I'm the owner of Phoenix Drone Services and Arizona FPV, and I'd like to thank you for the time to allow me to speak about Phoenix's draft of its drone ordinance. My business partners and I have been using UAV technology since 2011, and we come from a background of information technology degrees, photographers, civil engineers, and creative professionals. 5 years ago, long before the consumer drones were commonplace, we saw this technology and knew it would have a significant impact on the way we do everything from make movies, take photographs, performing search and rescue, delivering life-saving medicine and medical help, examine infrastructure, create topographic maps for civil engineering, and much more. What we could also see at the time was our government, and the FAA in particular, tried to attempt to criminalize those who would seek to use this new technology. We have watched the media fuel claims of consumer drones interfering with airplane traffic without one of those such reports being substantiated by any evidence. We have seen the NTSB classify small UAS and aircraft to allow the FAA to regulate, prosecute, tax, and disallow UAS operators. And we have seen many local elected officials draft ordinance that restrict and inhibit their communities from participating in a $7 billion industry, except for the city of Phoenix. The city of Phoenix has before them a draft ordinance that not only allows for the responsible use of UAS within their city, but protects its citizens at the same time. It has been written with reason and intelligence. It supports business and privacy. It is clear to me and my colleagues that the city of Phoenix understands that the state of Arizona has laws in place that both protect its citizens and empowers business owners like myself in regards to the issue of safety and privacy, and that we simply need to reflect those statutes in the ordinance. This ordinance is a model for our great nation and other nations around the world. This month, my partners and I are bringing drone-based civil engineering to Mexico. We will be meeting with the department heads from Mexico's FAA equivalent, and we will be sharing Phoenix's drone ordinance with them. I want to thank the council members and the city of Phoenix for the time they've spent drafting this ordinance, and I would only ask that before passing this ordinance that you include plain language and examples of what constitutes an individual's right to privacy. I believe this will serve to both inform the public and UAS operators of their responsibilities and rights regarding video, audio, and photographic recordings. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mark. And I'd like to recognize a couple of my colleagues. We have Councilmember Valenzuela and also Councilmember Waring here with us too. So welcome. And at this time, we have Mark from the Realtors. Come on down. And we have our screen going back up.
I know.
Wait for it to.
Mark?
No, not. That's for Sal. Good morning. My name is Mark Scher, and I appreciate you having me to speak before you. I appreciate this opportunity to share with you how this evolving technology of unmanned aircraft systems, also known as drones, has been beneficial to our industry and can be beneficial to businesses in the city of Phoenix. I believe that Sal really did, and Michael, you've put together a great draft of an ordinance. Our biggest concern today is who regulates drones. Today, drones are being used for many commercial purposes: 3D mapping, commercial pipeline observation, border patrol, package delivery, and so on and so forth. And as it was mentioned, our industry uses drones to market properties. The question is who would be best suited using or regulating this technology? We believe that the only way to achieve policies that lead to predictable uniformity when it comes to safety and privacy of citizens are to regulate drones on a national level and would provide a system of transparency and consistency. With nearly 1.1 million members, the National Association of Realtors is America's largest trade association. Realtors practicing commercial and residential real estate across the country are excited about the prospect of using drones, and businesses for aerial photography, videography, and property inspections, so long as they have their 333 exemption. Our concern with Phoenix adopting an ordinance on drones is the variation and inconsistency it will create among other cities that also seek to regulate drones. Citizens and consumers should be able to have a single set of standards so that notice protocols are predictable across the country. We don't disagree with the content of what's in your ordinance. We just believe that it needs to be across the board for all citizens. Is that my time?
Could I address that too?
I'm not sure if Mark has any closing.
I can just say, if you do choose to go with an ordinance, we look forward to working with you and creating a culture of safety surrounding the use of drones while still enabling users to employ the technology with ease and efficiency.
And
Yeah, I can
Mr.
address
Cecil.
that. First, it's not regulatory. It basically deals with your privacy, and it's just something that you inherently have in your home. You have an individual privacy and a privacy from government. If you read the ordinance, Mark, you would see in here too that a lot of it deals with the governmental part of it. So do you disagree with the governmental part of it, or
No.
just the individual part of it?
We believe that basically the content is okay in the ordinance. It's creating an ordinance that is uniform across the country.
But it deals with the governmental part of it too.
I understand, absolutely, and I don't disagree with that. But we believe that, the problem is that if you have an ordinance in the city of Phoenix and then another surrounding city has a different ordinance on drones, all of a sudden, in my industry and everybody else are required to know every individual ordinance dealing with drones rather than having a uniform set of language that they have to abide by.
Councilmember Waring?
Thank you. So to Mark, or maybe Sal, I don't know whichever, or maybe both. Is the state taking a look at this, or is the federal government looking at this, or both, or neither?
Currently, the National Association of Realtors is working with the FAA, the NTIA, the U.S. Department of Transportation to create a single set of standards. At the state level, I believe, Sal, were you working with?
I've been asked to help over there at the state.
So,
When you say broader, I mean, are you talking state, or are you talking federal? I mean, I suppose preferably both, but,
absolutely, preferably both.
okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, Mark, for bringing those concerns and issues and
Thank you very much.
address them in the future. Thank
We
you.
look forward to working with you.
We have Eric.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. For the record, Eric Emmert, Woodbourne Policy Group, representing the Arizona Diamondbacks. On behalf of the Diamondbacks, thank you, Councilman DeCiccio, for bringing this issue forward. Thank you, Councilman Nowakowski, for hearing it before your special committee. The Diamondbacks, well, let me take a step back. As recently as last week, there was an incident at the U.S. Open whereby a drone was privately operated into the facility and crashed into an area that was bleachers, and luckily nobody was hurt, nobody was sitting there. But incidents like that are becoming far too prevalent in sports facilities across the country. So the Diamondbacks believe that there's value in the discussion about an ordinance and appropriately determining uses for these unmanned vehicles. So we're hopeful that the discussion moves forward. We're happy to provide feedback as you all discuss what's appropriate use for these vehicles, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, we have
Yes.
one.
Have you had a chance to review the ordinance, and did you think it addressed your concerns?
Mr. Chair, Councilwoman Gallego, I don't have a copy in front of me. We have gotten feedback from in-house counsel from the Diamondbacks, and would be happy to share that with you, your staff, and the other members of the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Will.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and council members. For the record, Will Gaona with the ACLU of Arizona. I'd like to first thank Councilman DeCiccio and Councilman Nowakowski for engaging our office on this issue and the opportunity to provide some feedback. That being said, the ACLU of Arizona still has some concerns over this ordinance and concerns over the uses of drones in our domestic airspace generally. We believe we need some clear privacy rules so that we can enjoy this technology without sacrificing our privacy. To jump into the language a little bit, in regards to the section titled Prohibited Use, I just want to make a few comments and flag a couple things, and Councilman DeCiccio noted a couple of these in his presentation, but subsection 2 talks about using an UAV to appropriate the commercial value of a person's identity and makes this conduct a Class 1 misdemeanor. This may be an area where there's an adequate remedy already available in tort law. Obviously you could file for an injunction as well as recover damages for that type of action, so it may not be necessary to criminalize this type of behavior. Subsection 3 of that same section addresses outfitting a drone with a weapon and flying it over private property with the intent to threaten or intimidate. This may already be a crime. Arizona Revised Statutes 13-1202, which is titled Threatening or Intimidating, probably already criminalizes this type of behavior, so it may be duplicative to criminalize that here as well. And then in regards to the sections that are prohibited use by city personnel and the exception sections, we would favor an approach that is much more detailed in terms of the conduct and actions that are prohibited for city personnel, and this may nearly eliminate the need for such an extensive list of exceptions. So, if we're more specific and affirmatively state these are the actions that city officials and personnel can and can't take, one, that's much more clear for those city officials on what they can and can't do, and two, for citizens of Phoenix, they're much more aware of what their privacy rights are under this ordinance. I think the spirit of this ordinance is in the right place in terms of trying to limit law enforcement use to kind of emergencies and situations where there is a search warrant, but I think the language could still use some work. I provided on Friday a copy to Councilman DeCicio's office, some of our comments incorporated into the draft. I'd be happy to provide that to any of you to the extent that you're interested in it. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Will. Any questions for Will?
And I do.
Councilmember DeCiccio?
And Will, I want to thank you for all your work on this. You've been working with me for now, I think probably 9 months on this issue. So I do want to thank you for the work. And we're going to be looking at that where you're sending the comments that you brought over. I think you sent over to the city attorney as well. So we're going to look at that as this thing is moving forward. The other part of it, dealing with the civil versus criminal, I think we're going to be looking at moving that more toward the civil end of it rather than the criminal end that deals with the first section that you talked about. The other is with a detailed list. I think that's logical to be asking for that as to what we can and can't do and what does that specific list look like.
Great, thanks. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Will. We have James from the Goldwater Institute.
Hi, I'm James Manley. I'm an attorney with the Goldwater Institute. Thank you all for the opportunity to address you. I think the ACLU and the Goldwater Institute are sometimes on opposite sides of issues, but on this issue, I think we have the same concerns, which is to have legislation that addresses emerging technologies while respecting privacy rights. And I know the comments that we offered and the suggestions that we offered were designed to address those concerns. So what you'll see in section, both section 1 and 2 of the prohibited uses is this recognition of a pre-existing right to privacy that is in the common law. And what this ordinance does is simply add further protection to that. And you'll see that also in section 2 regarding appropriation of a person's image for commercial purposes. That's a pre-existing right. This ordinance doesn't expand that, it just furthers protection for it. And it also, the ordinance recognizes the need for law enforcement to gather evidence and the tremendous opportunity that drones provide to facilitate that process, while respecting the right of all of us to privacy in our personal affairs, and the requirement that when the government does need to collect evidence that it should obtain a warrant to do that. And so the Goldwater Institute supports the ordinance for those reasons.
Any questions?
I'd like to thank them for all the work that they put into it. With the Goldwater Institute and ACLU in particular, did an incredible amount of legal work on this thing. And that's what's caused the changes over time too. And I'm sure we'll have more changes after this meeting.
Thank you very much. Mr. Clark?
Thank you, committee, I guess, special meeting of the City Council. I'm a citizen of Phoenix, so hopefully I was late. Hopefully other citizens have testified. I think it's good that you're trying to be proactive. At the same time, I'm concerned also with the right to privacy, like you're saying. I want to make sure that, yes, if we're regulating the citizens, I know that City of Phoenix is already employing some of this technology. I'm just concerned about the fact that we already have, due to post 9/11 laws and all of these things going on, I believe that we've had a lot of stories in the news about how government is unduly spying on its citizens. So I just want to make sure, because I should have gotten the packet. I'm sorry I didn't do the exact ordinance, but I do like the fact that you're being proactive and that you're checking on this, because no matter what we think about it, it's growing larger and larger by the day. So I just hope that there are adequate provisions in here. I'm concerned as a citizen who goes to a lot of community events that the police, that you guys are giving good oversight over law enforcement, not to just be spying on everybody. I mean, we've had cases of federal government people spying on Quaker groups, people that you would never think that should be spied on. So just please make sure that the right to privacy from our own government that we have safe measures in there. So I haven't seen the measure. I know that it will probably pass today. So thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Clark? For all you that are viewing this subcommittee, it's a special meeting of the council. We have our Vice Mayor, Danny Valenzuela, Councilmember Gates, Councilmember Waring, and we had a presentation from Councilmember DeCiccio. At this time, I open it up to any of my colleagues that have any questions or comments regarding the drones.
Okay, I won't be shy.
All right.
I want to thank you, both of you. I think that it is something that is worthy of our attention. City of Phoenix has always been known as a leader. I would expect the other cities probably to follow our policy, as well as the state. May make some adjustments, but I think it is absolutely timely for us to go forward on this. I think it has a long ways to go. I think there are a lot of definitions and some more discussions that need to occur, and to make sure that we are aligned with any federal policy as it comes forth. But being ahead of that, I don't see as a problem. So, I mean, I'm willing to make a motion to proceed with this if no one objects, and then we could have comments. Is that okay,
Or maybe
Mr.
if
Chair?
we could have staff go through the, if I could add something.
I think what we'll do is we'll have the motion once we go back into our subcommittee.
Yeah.
So right now,
Yeah.
we'll just
Okay.
have comments. Mhm.
I'm anxious.
Councilmember Waring?
Thank you. So I guess if I was to sum this up in a couple sentences, your goal is to let groups like the realtors who use this for work, for meritorious or day-to-day business purposes, they're not bothering anybody. They can go about their business within the confines of this, but generally speaking, they can do what they're doing now, assuming they're being responsible. But if you're weaponizing it or using it to steal someone's picture to use or spy on people, that would be wrong. I would say if you sum it up in those two sentences, and that kind of captures, to my mind, really what we're talking about here, I applaud your efforts. I'm a little surprised, frankly, bigger government bodies than this, the state or the feds or something, haven't, because certainly the potential you can see down the road, maybe it's even here now, the time is quickly coming where this will definitely be necessary. I appreciate you getting out ahead of the curve on this before we're getting inundated with calls, et cetera. I assume, I guess for our attorneys, although, look, we don't have any attorneys up here, but they're over there, Brad. If there was a state law if we pass this, if there was a state law, then I assume we would do what we normally do, tweak what we've done to conform with a state or federal law. So I assume that wouldn't necessarily be an issue.
It depends on what the state legislature actually does.
Would you-
Understanding we may have to change ours a little bit if they do something that's not congruent.
Exactly, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Waring. The bottom line is the state could do a variety of things. One of the things they could do is decide to completely occupy the field and to dispossess all other agencies of any right to legislate in this area. We don't know what they'll do, but generally I think the councilman's right. We would try and harmonize our ordinance with what the state does if that were possible.
I mean, usually, in my experience being a legislator and now here, if we pass something and they pass something that's sort of the baseline, we could do more if it was necessary, but we would have to comply with the baseline state law, or federal law, depending.
Mr. Chairman, Councilman Waring, generally that's correct.
Yeah. I definitely agree with Mark Scher. I mean, it's great that we're doing this ahead of the curve, but it would be better if it was the state, or even better if it was the federal, so businesses could have sort of an understanding of if we go across the border I'm in Phoenix and then it goes over into Paradise Valley, everybody's got the same rules. But so far that hasn't happened. However, Councilman DeCiccio has never been shy about going to the legislature. So hopefully if we do something that's worth doing, hopefully he could take those ideas to the legislature and maybe they would be just behind us and pass something as well. So I think it's great that you're addressing an issue. I just want to make sure no businesses are hurt. It sounds like with Goldwater and the ACLU, kind of covered your bases there.
Councilmember DeCiccio?
If I could, one, the realtors are completely exempt. This has nothing to do with them. It doesn't involve them.
That's just one group that I'm aware of that
just
uses
one,
them
right.
now. So.
On the commerce end of it, we've purposely gone out of our way to exempt that. Again, it deals with the personal privacy. The other part of it dealing with the state, yes, we could we're definitely going to be talking. But what I want to do more importantly than that, because we got the comments from the ACLU Friday, so we really haven't had a chance to go through that. And they've been an integral part of this. I want to make sure we look at their comments and find a way to incorporate their comments and their thoughts into this too. Again, we're going to be looking at moving it from criminal to civil. That's one of the things that we should be bringing up. The other is, yes, there are some protections in there that are already inherent with other parts of the law, but this memorializes it into one document, like the Goldwater Institute said, and it also enforces it and it strengthens it too. So when we were looking at this, I mean, it's not surprising to me that we're going to be moving into other things too. I mean, it's changed a lot from December of last year, but it's pretty comprehensive. I mean, I've had a chance to look at what's happening around the country, and it's about as comprehensive of a document that I've seen that encourages commerce, encourages it, and at the same time protects our individual freedoms and our individual rights and privacy from government and from our neighbor.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, but I want to commend both Councilman DeCiccio, Councilman Nowakowski, and this subcommittee for moving us this far, and of course for inviting the entire council to at least weigh in. I understand you'll go into the subcommittee, back into the subcommittee to make any motion and vote. I appreciate, though I will not be able to vote, I appreciate Councilman Williams' motion, and I agree with the comments. I feel like we still have some ways to go. I think that the spirit of this is moving us in the right direction. I'm trying to break it down. I'm hearing what Councilman Waring asked and how you summarized it in a couple of sentences, and that's how I'm gathering it as well. Something that will move many industries, forward. It is technology, it is progress, while continuing to assure the privacy laws and the public safety ordinances that already exist to keep people safe. A lot of it sounds a bit redundant to me. There are laws in place that are against things like spying on people. There are laws in place that are, that would make a drone flying into a building illegal. And so I'm not quite sure, and I think it boils down, based on what Councilman DeCiccio was just saying, I think to me it comes down to maybe strengthening those laws, because whether they're in one document or split over several different laws with the Phoenix Police Department, they're still laws. If the problem is enforcing those laws, then we should just enforce the law. So those laws should be enforced. I don't know if we need another action to ask our police department to enforce those laws, and I believe they are enforcing those laws. But if what we're trying to do is strengthen that, then I understand that. I guess I can see that. I just want to be careful that we are not looked at as an organization that's creating a problem to fix it, frankly. There are laws in place that protect us. There is a purpose for this type of technology. I think every speaker who spoke, the young man who's right behind me, I think said it very eloquently, talked about many of the reasons why we have this technology. That's important to move our economy forward, to move our community forward. I certainly I don't condone anyone using a drone to break any type of law, but frankly, I don't condone anyone using a car to do it. I don't condone anyone using a weapon to do it. I still think that we have some ways to go, but I think, in the spirit of putting this together, I think it's the right thing to do to at least have the discussion, and I'm sure we'll have another opportunity to weigh in further at the council. I'm assuming this is going to pass here at the subcommittee. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Want to congratulate both you, Councilman DeCiccio and Councilman Nowakowski, for taking on this issue and bringing it in front of the council. Just since you first started this effort, this has become a lot more prevalent. I know I was watching the PGA Championship, and they actually had a drone that they were using to do footage. So, it's going to become more and more prevalent as the days go by. So it's important that we look at it.
Did Ping sponsor the drone?
No, that was not a Ping
it's not
drone.
Ping, okay.
But anyway, I think this is a unique event where we see the ACLU and the Goldwater Institute working together. I think that's great, and I want to congratulate both of you for encouraging that type of dialogue. I'm encouraged to hear that maybe there might be an effort of moving away from criminalization. I've been opposed to that in other instances where this council has voted to criminalize behavior, and so I'm happy to see that move, and I think that makes a lot of sense. And I also think it's very important that to the extent that we continue to look at this issue, that we send the message to the industry that this is not an effort to stifle innovation within the city of Phoenix. We encourage the appropriate use of drones within our city limits, so it's important to that. And then one question I had, I don't know if it's for Councilman DeCiccio or someone else, but my understanding is the FAA is looking at, or actually they're working on rules in this area, and if we have any idea when those might be coming out, because that obviously could really, sorry to bring up a sore
FAA.
subject of the FAA, but
FAA.
my understanding is they are looking at these.
Well, they were supposed to have something by the end of July.
Is that plane just going over?
But again, from what we've heard, at least from the general end of it, they're going to be dealing with anything over 200 feet. This deals with everything below 200 feet. And one of the things, too, is that one of the affirmations, and I know this is something that Councilwoman Williams feels strongly about, and I agree with her, is dealing with the airports. That is a problematic, and reaffirming that into ordinance is important. And because if anything, it gets the message out that we actually have an ordinance that says you can't do these things. Even though the federal government says you can't, I think it's important for us to reaffirm that as well. And that's something else that will be added later, I assume.
Mr. Chair, could I make a comment?
Absolutely.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm done. Thank you.
Following up on that, so it's not the height that I'm so worried about. A lot of interference can happen below 200 feet around an airport, especially when we have 2 airports just in the city of Phoenix that train pilots. We have enough bad occurrences as it is with pilot error, and it just be too easy. And I just think it's a protection that the pilots feel safe, people on the ground, and the surrounding businesses around the airports are always concerned about one of those planes coming down on them, and I think that will help them have a feeling of security. So I am very much interested in that.
Totally agree with you on that. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, Councilwoman Williams, I totally agree with you on that. I mean, one of the things that even the airline industry is concerned about are birds, believe it or not, getting into an engine. Now you can imagine what would happen with a mechanized object as well. So, I mean, getting something like that lodged into a takeoff or a landing, primarily a takeoff, that's a problem. And I encourage us to add that in there too.
Councilmember Waring.
The FAA takes over this. We know from experience, all the drones will have to fly lower, right over houses in our district. That's something to look forward to for all of us. So I did have a question, kind of follow up on Councilman Vice Mayor Valenzuela's point. I don't know if it's to Brad, or we certainly have, the chief was here, back behind me, maybe police officers, about the duplication issue. I guess I'm curious, are we getting complaints about drones either being weaponized or harassing people now? And if so, what happens now? And how would, so if we're going to make this civil and a civil issue, is that in conflict with criminal sanctions that I assume are already in effect? But I'm not positive about that. That's why I'm asking. So,
Mr. Chairman.
It might be for police. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, Councilman Waring, I think that question would be for the police department.
So I guess I'm just looking for, are we getting complaints? And if we are, what's happening now in those 2 instances? Did you hear the question, Chief?
Yes, I did. I'm not aware of many complaints. We've had a few in our downtown area near the Diamondbacks, near sporting events, but not anything significant from a privacy issue.
As far as the ordinance go and just listening to the conversation, and I've read it, I think it is good and going in the right direction from that perspective to give us the tools to take care of public safety and very definitive, defined tools so that how we know how to interact. Because right now there's a lot of unanswered questions. What laws do apply? And I would like to defer to Brad and actually Bob as far as some of the things, the actual verbiage in the language is a little bit open-ended for interpretation of a police officer to determine what is reasonable and highly offensive. So if we can clean some of those up, that'll certainly help us in our enforcement activities.
Okay. Who's Bob?
Bob Hyde, City Attorney.
Oh, okay. Oh, gotcha. All right.
And Brad.
You gestured and I saw Sal. I was curious. Okay. So I guess your point is sort of I believe it was Councilman Williams' point about tightening it up a little bit before it actually gets voted on, so you have clarity. It sounds like you would like to see this so you know more how to act in the cases that you do get. And again, what I'm saying is not
That's
an accurate
correct.
interpretation of what you're saying. I think that's a good reason to be doing this right there. If there's confusion now, certainly to the extent we could limit that, that would be excellent. Obviously, knowing the tweaking with changes in technology might be necessary going forward, or changing the state or federal law. So, I mean, as far as the weaponization of these things, has there been any, what does that look like? Is that a gun?
I don't know, quite frankly. And Lieutenant Brian Lee's in the audience, and he's in our Homeland Security Division. And Brian, if you could come forward and partake of a little knowledge on this from the weapon perspective.
And do we have to specify what weapons or what constitutes a weapon? Because I assume the whole device could be a weapon if you crashed it into someone.
Well, exactly. And there's, basically what we do is we look around the nation and see. We've seen videos. I'm sure everyone's seen the weaponization with a firearm of one of these platforms. And because the definition of a UAV can mean multiple types, multiple models, there are folks that have actually been able to adapt and make these a weaponized platform should somebody decide to use them for that purpose. Now, whether that be as a chemical dispersal agent, whether it be for a firearm, whether it be for mounting it with a video camera, or just as an airborne device that, should it malfunction and now becomes a 3.5-pound brick that's going to fall to the ground, those are some of the dangers that it does present. And those are some of the concerns that on the law enforcement side that we're looking at. Here in Phoenix, we haven't had any experiences that I'm familiar with where we've had a device that's either been recovered or a device that's been outfitted in that regard that would lead us to believe that that's an issue that's occurring here.
I guess I'm curious, how far do these things fly away from the person controlling them?
Well, currently right now, the FAA regulation is that it has to be line of sight. However, there is, and I'm sure some of the folks in the industry could attest to, that they're looking at being able to expand the distance that these things can fly from the operator. One of the problems that we have from an enforcement capacity is that we don't necessarily have the ability to locate the operator at the time the offense is occurring. So that's a concern for us.
And that's exactly what I was going to get at. So they have GPS locators on them. I assume they have serial numbers. Are they home built? I mean, are you confident you'll be able to identify who's operating a drone? Let's just say it's not even criminal intent, but they crash it into my house. They break a window, and I want to know who's responsible, who has to pay to fix my window. I've got this drone. Can you track that down?
At this point right now, we would not be able to because there is...
I was wondering, so thank you for addressing
Yeah.
I can comment on some of those things if you would like.
Yeah, I just see you not, if you wouldn't mind,
Absolutely, if you don't
Mr.
mind.
Chairman, thank you.
So, generally speaking, the consumer drone is what most people have acquired. They're available at hobby stores, and they have limited abilities, one of which being the distance away from the operator right now is about 600 yards, so twice the length of a football field, which is, no small stretch by any standard, but in addition to the limited capabilities of that particular aircraft, which is going to be like what 90% of drone operators own, it also does have a serial number on it, so you could trace back a point of origin. Generally speaking, people are using these drones to do photography and videography, and every time you start that video, guess whose face is on it pushing the play button? So usually if that crashed into your house, for example, if you had brought it to me, the first thing I would do is go into the computer and determine by GPS, which they all have on it, the place where it took off from, because every time you take off from the ground, it sets a GPS marker. That's what allows the fail-safe that's built into the drone to return to home in case the operator actually uses radio control.
I
of
assumed
it.
that's how it worked, but didn't know for sure, so thank you for
So I could go right in there and find out, where it took off from. Not only that, but I would review the video footage, which wouldn't be encrypted, and I would probably be able to come up with a face. Either that, or I'd be able to come up with the location where it took off from. A street sign, cars, houses, a park, something recognizable where you could find out the orientation. In regard to weaponizing them, yes, it can be done. Again, I think you're looking at a very small population. Sal mentioned the 1% to 2% of people who are going to do malice with any technology or guns or vehicles or anything like that. So yes, it can be done. It would require someone with knowledge and expertise, a specialist in building them. There's quite a bit of recoil that comes from a weapon, for example, and you would need to build a system that could actually handle that in 3D space. It would be very difficult to do, which is why we've probably only seen really one video that was confirmed that it was a real drone with a gun on it. So again, you're looking at a very small part of the population that's going to do these extremely foolish things with them.
Yeah, and my comment should not be interpreted as I'm anti-drone or something.
No, not at all.
Because, yeah, I just didn't want to be misinterpreted that because it could be weaponized, I mean, a car could be used to run somebody
Absolutely.
over.
If anything, what you guys are doing today is giving me an opportunity who knows something about the technology to inform a lot of people. This is a lot of people to me, and I see videotapes, and maybe it'll go somewhere else. But the more knowledge that we have as human beings and as a community, the better suited we are to deal with any problems that arise. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to dispel myths and answer questions. And I certainly haven't taken it as this committee is anti-drone at all.
And this is a lot of people for us, too. People don't usually come to us.
Yeah, hey,
So
drones
we're excited
kick
that
butt.
this issue got a few more people.
So
So it sounds like at this point, if you used a drone for some nefarious purpose, we would probably be able to figure out who you are unless you took off the serial number, got rid of the video, built it yourself,
yes.
and extended the range. Because you're going to be in the immediate vicinity.
Absolutely. And
So-
there are ways to do all of those. I wouldn't stand up here and say that there are not. But 5 years ago, when you couldn't buy it off the shelf, you had to build it yourself, those people are few and far between. I know how to do those types of things, but I don't feel that the general public would ever be able to figure that out. It took us 3 and 4 years to figure out how to just get them to levitate. So now the technology has become easier to use. You can buy them off the shelf. Now with that, I want you guys to know that what they're building into these consumer drones are things called geofences. Every single one of our airports is tagged as a geofence. The FAA wants us to stay 5 miles away from that airport. With inside a consumer drone already built in is a geofence that will not allow you to either take off inside that 5 mile perimeter, and it will also not let you encroach upon it. So if I'm flying and I hit that 5 mile GPS geofence, my drone will continue or cease to move forward, and it will just hover there no matter what I do as the operator.
And that's not in the future, that's now.
That's now.
Sorry.
That technology is being built in, and it's in the most popular drone, which is a DJI Phantom. All of the other companies are following suit. I wouldn't even be willing to bet that. I would be willing to bet that as part of what we do as a nation is we have some of these things built into the technology itself. You know, you can't buy a car that goes faster than X amount of miles an hour and have it still be street legal. So they'll be able to build these geofences and these fail-safes and protections into these drones moving forward.
So, Mr. Chairman, just one more. So you build your own drones. Can you build a drone, or does anybody build a drone without the GPS? Or do you need the GPS to make it work?
No, you don't need the GPS to make it work, but it becomes significantly more difficult to operate a drone without GPS beyond line of sight. One of the biggest features of this technology is what's called FPV, or first-person view technology. It's what allows the drone and the operator, or the operator, to see what the drone sees. And most of the time, you're operating your drone looking at your little screen because you want to see what you're taking a picture of. I just had a brain fart. I forgot what we were talking about.
The GPS in the...
The GPS. So as soon
Would it
as
work
you,
without it?
as soon as you, it will work without it. But as soon as you get beyond your relative line of sight, the drone becomes increasingly more difficult to operate
'Cause you don't
without
know where
GPS.
it is or what it might run
Absolutely. And novice users, which are anyone who hasn't been doing this for 5 years, it's people who have purchased these in the last 2 years, they are not flying without GPS. It's incredibly difficult. These drones represent a significant investment for most people, between $1,000 and $5,000, and generally speaking, you're not going to be doing things that you want to just throw that money away.
So the tools that the police want, or that Councilman DeCiccio and Councilman Nowakowski would like to give them, would be effective because we will be able to find the person operating the drone.
For example, 3 years
in
ago,
most every case, it sounds like.
Yeah, they would definitely, it wouldn't be a drone crashes into your house. We'll use that example. You turn it over to the police department. In short order, they would be able to recover at least some sort of evidence to find out where that drone came from, what it was doing, what its intent was. If they didn't have the ability to do that, come to us. We actually worked with the Department of Homeland Security to investigate a drone that crashed near the Mexican border. We were able to determine the GPS locations of that drone and what it was kind of maybe or maybe not up to. So,
Thank you. Very helpful. I appreciate you taking the
You bet.
time.
That's why we have 20-year-olds in our economy. I mean, my gosh.
Councilmember Gates?
Yeah, and I just wanted to add as well, not only is it hobby stores that are selling these, but I actually went to the grand opening of the AT&T Store of the Future, which the first one in Arizona opened in District 3. So put a plug in it. They're selling drones there. So if you haven't reached out to AT&T already, I mean, as well, we've got a lot of resources out there in the community who can provide more guidance and assistance as we draft this.
Any other comments from my colleagues or closing remarks?
Impressive.
Vice Mayor?
And Councilman, Mr. Chair, I want to be very clear. My comments, I think I want to be clear that I am supportive of the effort that is happening here, all the research, all of those that you pulled in that have been helping to this point. This is something that we can all, I mean, I've learned more about drones in the last, 3 minutes than I've known leading up to this meeting. So it is encouraging as we move forward, as this continues to be put together. I just want to be sure again that it's something that is, it's not stifling the innovation that is happening here in the city, and it's not necessarily redundant of laws that are already in place. But if it's going to help strengthen those things and even help educate the community on what people can and cannot do, I think it's a positive effort.
Any other comments, closing remarks? Councilmember DeCiccio?
No, it's just definitely a tough balancing act when you're dealing with individual privacy from government, and then making sure that it doesn't impede commerce. And I think one of the things that we found out in talking to Mark and his organization was that clarity of rules actually help them. And I think what it does is it also allows them to be able to grow their business. And we kept it really simple. I mean, it's just that, you just really can't videotape somebody in their backyard. They can't videotape somebody in what they consider to be a reasonable level of privacy. But the majority of this ordinance, if you look at it, really deals with privacy from government. And most of you know how I feel about that too. I feel pretty strongly about it. Is that you should be able to feel free that your government is not going to be videotaping you, looking at you, especially if you're out protesting or, creating situations where I may not agree with what they're saying, but at the same time, there should not be any chill on free speech.
Well, at this time, I'd just like to thank our staff and Councilmember DeCiccio for all your hard efforts in bringing this to this subcommittee. And also, I'd like to thank all those individuals, all those committee meetings that we had from the Black Chamber, from the Hispanic community, from business owners to the sports industry, from everyone from all different walks of life, and finding that common ground. And it's just amazing when you talk about public safety and you talk about citizens' privacy, how that common ground comes really easily. And that's why you can have the Goldwater Institute and also the ACLU working together on one issue. The other thing too is that it was amazing in these meetings that we found out that under 200 feet, that we really don't have an ordinance when it comes to unmanned aircrafts. And that's one of the reasons that we really came up with this ordinance, and we're trying to pass something for the city of Phoenix. There's all kinds of ordinances out there, for example, peeping toms, but at the same time, is that an individual? And would you consider a person handling a drone, a peeping tom, or, so there's some loopholes in there when it comes to the legal aspect of it that we were learning ourselves. We're saying, wow. So, I just really want to thank all those individuals that are really looking into the future and creating ordinances that are going to protect our community, and especially in large groups of gatherings such as sports facilities and also marches and downtown activities. And basically, how do we use technology to its fullest and at the same time respect individuals' rights? So thank you all. I'm not sure if Councilmember Pastor would have any closing remarks.
Oh, thank you for doing your due diligence. Obviously, both Councilman DeCiccio and Councilman Nowakowski did their homework, and I appreciate it. I do feel that it still needs some work, and we go back to the groups that we have heard today to look at that and do the necessary things that were needed in the ordinance, but thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Williams?
Quickly, I want to thank the other members of the council that came today. I think that it's very important that we have this type of discussion and interaction on something this important. So thank you very much for coming to the subcommittee.
Yeah, and thank you again. I mean, that is true. I don't know. We actually have everybody, almost everybody here. I appreciate it too. And I can't downplay the amount of work that Councilman Nowakowski played a role in this thing. It was amazing bringing in such diverse groups to be able to open this up to and talk to them about it. It was, you know, groups that I normally don't know. So, I mean, he was amazing, and the work that he put in here and a lot of it dealt with the safety issue. That was the stuff that Councilman Nowakowski really did a lot on.
Thank you. And thanks once again to our staff, Layla and Vanessa, for all your hard work in making this all possible. With that, I adjourn this special meeting of the City Council, and we'll go back into our subcommittee in about 30 seconds.
Thanks, Mark.
Alrighty, I'd like to call the meeting back to order for the Public Safety Veterans Subcommittee. At this time, we're on item number 3, which is unmanned aircraft regulations. At this time, does anyone have any comments or a motion?
Mr. Chair, I've heard a lot of discussion this morning and understand that there are different segments of regulations, rules, laws, et cetera, that are in place, but I feel society today believes in bundling. They want a package so that they understand the boundaries, and I think this incorporates exactly that. I think this is a new technology, one that is growing quickly, but I want to praise everyone who's been involved in the development of it so far. The ordinance, I think, still needs a lot of work, so I want to make the motion to have staff do additional research necessary to finalize the ordinance for review based on comments and any submittals that were made today, and to include an amendment that says a new item 4, prohibited uses sections, which would read: a person commits a Class 1 misdemeanor if the person operates a UAV, UAS in a manner that endangers the safety of a manned aircraft, and to bring this back to the subcommittee upon completion. I would also like, as when you bring that back, make some recommendations to us on enforcement.
I second.
Alrighty, we have a motion and a second. Any comments on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you so much. Now we're on consent items. We're going to pull items number 4 and 6. So if we have no presentations planned at this time, but we have staff here to answer any questions that you have. So at this time, 4 and
47?
or 5 and 7.
Move approval.
All right, we have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Items 5 and 7 pass. We're on item number 4. We have a card from Mr. Leonard Clark. If you come on up.
Thank you very much for letting me speak. My name is Leonard Clark. I'm just a citizen, not representing anybody else from City of Phoenix, not a lobbyist. I come down here, as you know, I know you, and I just want to let the citizens of Phoenix know that they are welcome to come down. I will bring this up as a side issue. You say we can validate our parking, but I'm being told I have to at least pay half price, so just telling you, if you want more people to to participate in the civic process, you need to not charge them. But putting that aside, you guys, I'm not saying you're doing it personally, but somebody needs to look into that. But yes, this is on this motion about, on the special van and DUIs. And I was so thankful that the council person Waring at the last meeting told me that ever since we passed these stricter laws on DUI laws, fatalities have gone down. But I also hope that in the future, I approve of this. I hope you will look into the fact that, again, your traffic engineers and other experts will, for me as a citizen, tell me that due to the higher amounts of people speeding right within our borders, but basically in the jurisdiction of the state of Arizona on I-17 freeway and I-10, that the fatalities are not going up. So I hope you'll check into some way to do that, because it's turning into the Indy 500 out there. We're doing great, our officers here in front of the schools and all that. So thank you. I support this motion, but please check into the higher rates of speeding. And somehow I would like, as a citizen, not have to pay for parking when I come down here, because I think it discourages citizens from participating in the civic process. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Absolutely, Councilman Williams.
Leonard, all you have to do is go to the 11th floor, District 1. You're one of my constituents, and we'll validate your parking anytime you're
Thank you
down
so
here.
much. That's why I voted for you. You're great. You let the citizens come down and participate. Thank you.
Mr. Clark, you also have item number 6.
Go to any one of us.
Oh, boy. Okay. Thank you. And I know it's easier to criticize than to govern. So I'm not just here to criticize. I'm here to thank you for the work you do. As you know, I have some law enforcement folks here, and I do thank them for the work that they do. And this is nothing personal on them. This comes to the politicians. I believe that by taking this funding, one of these items is to take funding from from the DEA, Drug Enforcement Association. I believe we have a lot of people who are in jail now in, Arizona due to these laws on marijuana. Now, I understand it's a complicated issue, and that's my point. We need to take a look at this and find out how City of Phoenix can lower the rate of people going into prison for victimless crimes like marijuana smoking. I do not do it. But to me, and I'm not even libertarian here, but being from Arizona, alcohol is legal, marijuana is legal. Many people die from DUI, people driving under the influence. Yet we're throwing people in jail, many, many thousands from Phoenix, our citizens, for smoking marijuana. So a lot of them have legitimate complaints. So I just need you, I'm opposing this item because right now our county attorney, Robert Montgomery, is on a persecution binge going after medical marijuana users. I'm a veteran, and I have many veteran friends who are on this. And yes, I know he'll put a target on my back for doing this, but I ask you as my representatives, do something, vote against this, stop funding DEA, and this is only going to contribute to throwing more of our citizens into the gulag private prisons in Arizona. If you're going to throw people in prison for smoking marijuana, throw them in prison for drinking alcohol, because we know they have the monopoly, and we have a certain senator who makes money off of the distributorship at Budweiser. Thank you. And I want to speak on item 8 later. I guess that's not part of this.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. At this time, I'll entertain a motion for items number 4 and 6.
So moved.
Already, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, we're on item number 8. The ethics ordinance that we have.
Why do we have this? Can I ask that question? Mr. Chair, I guess I have a question on why this is back on the agenda, because at a prior meeting, I thought the subcommittee made a motion, made a decision, and forwarded it to the full council. And I'm just tell you, I'm not prepared to change my mind.
Mr. Chair, Councilman Williams, I believe a request was made by a member of the subcommittee to hear further discussion. Dan and I have no presentation. We received the direction from the subcommittee the last time we were here. We stand ready to take any further direction from the subcommittee. We also stand ready to proceed forward to City Council.
All right, we have some cards, so we'll go out to the public. We have Leonard Clark. Come on down.
I believe, and I'm sorry, I'm just a citizen. My name is Leonard Clark. I'm not a lobbyist. I'm not being paid by anybody. Taking my time to come down here as a citizen. And I believe it's item 8. Okay. I'm really, because our citizens that also live in the city of Phoenix and work for City of Phoenix, I see how hard they work. I'm very concerned. I don't like the fact that there's a lot of ambiguity in this proposed ordinance, revising ethics and ordinance and inquiry, because, all too often now we see city workers vilified. And I know you don't do this. I know you love our city workers. I see how you support them. But I just think there's a lot of ambiguous terms in this, and I would just hope that we would go back and research it more first before we start going off on witch hunts against people who are already working hard to see that Phoenix is one of the top cities in the country. And thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next will be Steve. Come on down.
I see him hiding behind the pillar.
Mr. Chair, members, my name is Steve Berline. I'm the president of the United Phoenix Firefighters Association. I represent the men and women of the Phoenix Fire Department. I'll get to the point. This document was sent to me. It was forwarded to me from another coworker via email yesterday. And I tried to get through it as quick as I could, and we just haven't had time to vet it. And I thought it was my fault that I wasn't paying attention. But after talking to the other employee union leaders, nobody has seen it. No member, no representative of COPU has seen this document. And it takes time. It's a significant change that will affect the members of the United Phoenix Firefighters Association. I spoke with Frank Piccoli, who represents ASME. And he's out of town, and he felt the same way. So he's sorry he couldn't be here, but he stands behind me, and I think you're going to hear from the other groups. And I'm going to speak on behalf of the probably thousands of volunteers who give their time to the city of Phoenix. And this change impacts them. And they need to be taken into consideration. I don't know if the boards and commissions have had an opportunity to take a close look at it and vet it, but my primary opposition and my request is that you hold off until the COPQ group can review it. We'd appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We have Will.
Thank you, Chair. Members of Council, Will Buvadas from the Phoenix Law Enforcement Association. Haven't spoken in front of Council for a while, but now I guess it must be that time of year since I've now twice in 2 days. So
I don't know about that shirt, Will.
I can't help what happened on Saturday. I mean, I can't help that. But I stand with Steve and the firefighters and the other city unions. The first I saw the new ethics policy was just a minute ago when Steve showed me. We have not been briefed on it. We have not been included in the process. I just asked that we delay it until the employee unions, COPQs, had a chance to look at it. And I also support his recommendation as far as I don't believe any of the boards, as far as my knowledge, have also had a chance to review the policy. And those are who it probably impacts the most, our volunteers and our employees. So thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the subcommittee. Mike Huckins with the Greater Phoenix Chamber of Commerce. I apologize for coming late to the process, but a various number of our members did have some concerns with this proposal as drafted. I think that the issues comes down to the cost of the meal and incidentals of attending a special event by a staff member or an elected official versus the cost of the sponsorship. We have many companies that sponsor events at many different levels. Chamber Company X can sponsor a table for $1,000. Company Y can sponsor a table for $100. If you're basing the reporting on the cost of that sponsorship, it's going to vary widely between members that sit at this table versus that table. The attendee is still hearing the same speaker, they're getting the same rubber chicken meal most likely, and so we would like to see some uniformity in that area. The sponsorship benefits the chamber, the sponsor on their exposure, but not the elected official. The elected official is receiving the benefit of the meal and the incidentals of receiving the program. We'd like to see us conform to the current lobbyist reporting requirements that lobbyists such as myself and the other folks have to report, which is the cost of the meal and the other incidentals that we report. We believe this will save staff time versus your staff tracking down the number of sponsors and various entities that are sponsoring the event. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you so much. Next is Luis.
Thank you.
Chairman Nowakowski, members of the subcommittee. My name is Louis Schmidt, Aspen Local 2384 President. I haven't even reviewed this policy. We all talk about transparency. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago that Rick Romley and the group sat to discuss this, and it looks like what's happened since then is a lot of negotiating with the council themselves on how to regulate themselves. But as public servants, these officers, any sworn staff, any city employee, they don't get to determine their own rules, and they don't get to negotiate on what rules they should affect them or not. And to me, this has gone on way too long. This back and forth. The subcommittee made some great, strong recommendations, and to have, we know it's an election year, but the council's just, they didn't want to accept the recommendations. We need regulation, because if you guys aren't willing to regulate yourselves, then how can you impose regulations upon the citizens and the employees? I haven't even reviewed this policy. I was looking for it in here in the agenda, but it's not even listed on there. At the end of the day, the council always talks about transparency, and once again, I don't think that the council's been as transparent as they should be to the citizens and to the employees on this particular item, and therefore, without actually reviewing the entire watered down process, I don't think it's ethical to send it forward to the council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Any comments from my colleagues?
I want to respond to several accusations or it's unethical. I sit on the Transparency Committee, and I also sit on this committee. And if anything, I definitely want to be as ethical as possible as I sit and represent the constituents of District 4, but also the city constituents. This policy has been vetted for 18 months. When I entered into office a year and a half ago, we have been going back and forth, back and forth. We've had special meetings. There have been a number of items that have gone out to community groups. And so the last time we were here, I want to say May or June, we asked for everybody that sat up here, if this is whatever we decide today will go to the formal council. So it went to it's going to the formal council. So I'm not really sure why we're back here having the discussion. And I just want to ask staff, is there a particular item or dynamic that is happening that we're not aware of?
Maybe I can answer that really quick. One of my colleagues on this subcommittee asked for some clarification and wanted some more time, so I asked staff if we can actually hold it off until the beginning of after summer break, so that colleague of mine can actually have those questions be asked and answered. Okay.
Wonderful. And thank you, Councilman Nowakowski, and thank you for your leadership on this issue. It's a complicated issue, and I think everyone has desires that they want, and it's not possible to meet everyone's agreements, but you've done a good job trying to shepherd a difficult issue. I do think it is important that employee groups have a chance to be able to consult on this and be familiar with it. And I think the business community is an important stakeholder as well. Probably not everyone monitors public safety subcommittee agendas. If you represent employees who primarily work in another line of work, you may not work as closely. So I will, at the end of my comments, be offering a motion that we forward this to the full council for a policy session. I think that's more appropriate than formal, because I think our other colleagues get a chance to weigh in on our recommendations and have a more robust review, because they've not had the benefit of this subcommittee meeting. But I do think we need to first consult with our employee groups, and so my motion will include that it should go before the employee groups, before it goes to full council, and so that we can have additional time for community review. The final version isn't perfect. I think it reflects a lot of study, a lot of reworking, and a lot of compromise. I, as my comments in the past have indicated, would have approached the issue in a different way. I've expressed in the past that I think there is a definite room for improvement in terms of the events policy, which I think runs the risk of discouraging community engagement, and I would have preferred a greater degree of resident participation in the oversight process, and I would have placed a greater focus on strengthening our conflict of interest and disclosure policies. At the end of the day, I think any revision of the policy needs to take a look at the financial nexus between public office held by an individual and any private benefit derived as a result of that office. I think there's still potentially room for these conversations to continue between now and the placement of this proposal on the full policy committee agenda. Community leaders from across the spectrum have reached out looking to engage further before the full council considers this proposal, and I look forward to these conversations. That being said, it's important that this conversation move forwards, and despite my misgivings, which I believe I put on the record, I know that my colleagues are very eager to move forward on this issue. So I motion that we send this to the full policy agenda, but first give our employee groups the opportunity to review it and have a conversation. And I believe that COPQ is the appropriate venue for that.
Didn't we do that at the last meeting?
Response. Councilmember Williams has a question.
Yeah, I thought that, I made that motion at the last time this was on the agenda that go to full council.
So staff is prepared to put this on a formal agenda.
Oh, okay.
This is an ordinance. It's typically where it's heard, but it also can be heard at a policy agenda. That's an issue for the council with the mayor to put an item on a policy agenda. Staff is prepared to move an item at the direction of the subcommittee to formal.
So, Paul,
Councilmember Pastor.
my question is, in between now and going to formal, there is an opportunity for groups to come together and to discuss some of the items and then be able to come to formal. And at formal, we have the ability to change anything within the ordinance.
Mr. Chair, Councilman Pastor, we would be pleased to schedule this on an agenda that gives sufficient time for interested parties to interact with the law department or staff about any questions they may have or et cetera. And then it is obviously the prerogative of the city council that if there is changes to the proposed ordinance as adopted by the Public Safety Subcommittee in June, that staff will implement whatever text or recommendations are proposed and approved by the council.
Paul, we heard transparency thrown out there, and that this wasn't really an open process. Can you go back to when that Blue Ribbon Committee was formed, and wasn't that under Phil Gordon, and how did it transfer into where we're at now?
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, Mayor Stanton in 2012 asked the council to authorize the formation of a citizens panel to evaluate ethics policies. Dan led most of that work effort for probably the better part of nearly a year, I believe. Right. And in 2013, they made a report in January, I believe January or February of that year. Ultimately, it came forward to the full city council. In that year, the city council asked that it come back to the Public Safety Subcommittee, which is what the better part of what occurred in 2014. The numbers of meetings, I apologize, I'm not perfectly precise, but in the fall of 14 and in the spring into just before the break of this year. We have, as staff and the law department, visited with you on those subjects. So I don't have a perfect recounting, Mr. Chair, but I would imagine we have visited in a public forum something close to 8-10 times before the city council discussing these topics, and there has clearly been a movement of the language across time, and what you see is the latest iteration as approved by this subcommittee in June. We're obviously as staff prepared to proceed anything forward at your direction and advice.
So I would be able to have the ability to work with the organizations and the business community on making sure, hear their, look at the policy again, and then make recommendations at the formal.
Mr. Chair, Councilman Pastor, yeah, absolutely. I think any member of the council, this happened the last time, there was a number of suggestions made in the formal meeting by the elected officials. At that time, what we originally did was we passed a policy, and then we came back with an ordinance, and that was a little less successful. And so that's why we're trying to bring forward the ordinance language and the policy discussion in a kind of a simultaneous fashion, so that everybody knows precisely what are the words that will be used in the ordinance that will be implemented.
Alrighty, so we have a motion. Is there a second to the motion of Councilmember Gallegos? If not, I'll entertain a second, other motion.
I move that this goes to formal with talking with some of the, including some of the organizational groups and the business community suggestions and looking at that.
I would add also the volunteer groups, sort of like
Well, the commission, the whole.
the commissions and, yeah.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. We're on item number 9, public safety budget update.
Mr. Chairman, my understanding is we still do not have a screen, which would make this a little difficult to follow.
We have the PowerPoint.
But we could proceed at your direction, but in terms of being able to see slides relative to the budget, we don't have the ability to do that for the folks on television.
I would make a recommendation if any of my colleagues have any questions on the monthly expenditures and budget, that you sit down and you have a private meeting with any of the entities that you all have some concerns on. And if for next month, we'll make sure that the audio and the video is actually working.
Yes.
If that's all right with my colleagues. And with, already, so thank you so much, and sorry for having you all come down here. And so next, we're looking at future agenda items.
Thank you. And I requested the sex offender notifications. I would be happy with a written report. It's just we started a program to notify neighborhoods of current levels of sex offenders and departures, and so we'd love to get a written update on that. I don't know that we need a presentation.
Perfect. Any other future agenda items? You know, one of the things I'd like to look into is that we have the body cameras in the Maryville precinct. If we can have an update on that and maybe future expansion of the body cameras in other precincts for a future agenda item. Anything else?
As part of that, could you have them talk about the storage? Because I know that's been problematic on how they
Relative to the
retain it,
cameras, yes.
based on the cameras and
Yes.
progress they're making.
Any other updates or any other future agenda items?
Mr. Chairman, I believe, no, I'm confusing it. No, we're good. We're good.
Okay. Any others?
Yeah, can I have an update from police and fire on the first responder Traumatic Incident Task Force report?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And the implementation of the recommendations?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, for a future agenda item, we're going to be going into our budget next year. If we can look at innovative ways of generating funds for our police department. I know that we have fire with our ambulance service. Is there anything that we can do on the police side of it where maybe it's looking at our DUIs or looking at maybe even the towing contracts that we have? Is there anything within the police department that we can actually generate some funds to support future police officers?
Take a look at that.
Right.
This fall, I know we had, in one of the committees, I think it was downtown, where we hired a coordinator for the event. But I believe on these big events, Homeland Security and kind of takes a lead position. Can we have something later this fall telling us their plan and what's going on in downtown for the events coming up in January and this
Yes.
spring? Thank you.
Alrighty, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much.